Planned only.
He knows that. You will know that.
Shagufta ma'am. Ma'am, shall we start?
Yes, we can begin. Jana, are you on?
Yeah,
I'm there.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Geeta Rajan, and I welcome you all to day 5 of our faculty development program. Over the past 4 days, we have discussed a range of transformative topic, outcome-based education, AI's role in academic and research, effective curriculum design, and assessment strategies, each enriching our understanding of modern teaching methodologies. Today, we shift our focus to another crucial aspect of education, Bloom's taxonomy and classroom management, strategies for effective teaching and learning. This session will provide us with valuable insights into structuring learning experiences and managing classroom effectively to enhance students' engagement and academic outcomes. To guide us through this insightful discussion, we are honored to have with us an esteemed scholar in the field, Ms. Jayabala Girish from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. Ms. Jayabala Girish holds degrees in nutritional biochemistry, a master's in education, English literature and journalism, and is currently pursuing a PhD in education. With over 25 years of experience in teaching and content strategy, she has been serving as an assistant professor at Tata Institute of Social Science since 2018, specializing in business communication, ethics and corporate governance, and pedagogical strategies. As an author, she has contributed to academic publications and co-authored the reliable series 11th and 12th English Yuvak Bharati, widely used across Maharashtra. Her journalistic contribution to the Times Group and Hindustan Times reflect her commitment to integrating education and media to create impactful learning experiences. In recent years, she has conducted soft skills and gender sensitivity training for police officials in Prayagraj ahead of Mahakumbh and led sessions on gender sensitivity for senior professionals at Capgemini. She has also designed a crossword series as a pedagogical resource kit for students of 11th and 12th and serves as a Board of Studies member at CS College of Science and Economics, Sion, Mumbai. It's truly an honor to have you with us today, Ms. Jayabala Girish. You eagerly look forward to your insights. The session is now over to you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Shagufta ma'am. And
Welcome. Very nice to have you with us. We hope
Thank
to
you.
have a very enriching session. We are looking forward to all your knowledge here. Thank you so
you,
much,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Thank you, Geeta ma'am.
Thank you for
And
accepting our
I
invitation.
thank Roshan sir for having given me this opportunity to address you all today.
Thank you for accepting our invitation. Thank you so much.
It's my honor, ma'am. But I would have loved to conduct an offline session, but doesn't matter. The
Sure.
online session
Sure,
will be
we have it
in.
next time.
So, as Geeta ma'am rightly said, Bloom's taxonomy helps us in managing the classroom because we will be setting the objectives, whatever learning outcome we foresee the students would attain after a particular set of instructions. That is what is foreseen, and that is chalked as the under various domains like cognitive, psychomotor, and affective. That was designed by Benjamin Bloom's. That's what I'm going to discuss today. But before starting with my session, I just want to understand if you have ever heard this term before. I mean, we can have an interactive session, or if you are hesitant to speak out, you can even write in the chat box, because I know there are multiple problems. At times the network is shoddy and we are not able to speak due to the bandwidth issues. You can always write in the chat box. I just want to understand the previous knowledge before I get into the current stream of instructions. Can anyone tell me if you have ever heard, or if at all you have heard, what have you heard exactly about Bloom's taxonomy? What is it regarding?
Ma'am.
Yes, Abha ma'am. Yeah.
Bloom's taxonomy is a kind of a matrix that helps us assess the students of the different learning levels, starting from the basic understanding to those with high IQ, who can innovate and create. So
Okay.
evaluating them based on their intellectual quotient. I think so. Bloom's taxonomy provides the base for that.
Excellent. So one of the definitions is that it decides the rung of the hierarchy that the student belongs to. Okay, when I say rung of the hierarchy, if you want me to be bilingual, I don't mind speaking in Hindi also in between. But wherever you don't understand the words, you can always interrupt me. I'll translate it in Hindi or Marathi. I'm quite conversant with Marathi, Hindi, and Tamil as well. Okay, Tamil nobody would know here anyway. So different rung of hierarchy. When I say there are basically there are three domains. Every individual has three domains. One is cognitive, second affective, third psychomotor. So when we talk about cognitive, it is the cognition. You all must have used this word very often, recognize, right? Recognize. So we just use the word recognize, recognition. But when we get into the root epistemology of the word, we come to know that recognize is nothing but cognition. You already have the cognition of a particular thing. You are recognizing it. Okay, so cognition, when I say, it is basically the knowledge, or it's understanding, remembering, analyzing, synthesizing, evaluating, and creating. So cognitive domain is pertaining to the knowledge, it's pertaining to the brain. So whatever cognition the child has or the student has, it has to be developed into 6 different levels of learning. So the Benjamin Bloom, he has structured it in a proper hierarchical manner. So that's what we are going to learn. Now, basically, we are going to learn affective as well as psychomotor. Affective domain is basically the heart. Okay, the sensitivity, the sensitization, or it deals with, our sensitivity towards environment, or our empathy, sympathy, the abstract nouns. All the abstract nouns that we cannot concretize, like, having compassion towards somebody, or being sensitive towards the needs of the future generally. So these all come under affective domain. Okay, affective is basically what affects you is the affective domain. It has to do with the heart. And psychomotor, all the learning outcomes or all the academic activities which will further enhance the skilling, upskilling, reskilling, unskilling. Okay, you have to unlearn also a few things. For example, if somebody is good at driving in India and he needs to take up a license in some other country, so the left hand driving and right hand driving, he has to unlearn a particular kind of driving to relearn the second type of driving. Okay, so that is psychomotor. When we say it encompasses all the skills. Okay, it's the skill that a student attains during the process of learning. And we also attain the skills when we are teaching, because as we teach, we learn. We are perpetual learners. All our teaching fraternity, the members of the teaching fraternity, we are all perpetual learners. We always say, education is from womb to tomb. Okay, we have to educate ourselves and we are continuously learning. That is why such faculty development workshops are conducted, and NEP also demands the same. Okay, so this is to set the induction of what is Bloom. Okay, so basically we have 3 academic engagements during our pedagogy or in our teaching learning. The first engagement is set the learning outcome before planning the lesson or before planning the session. Okay, so when you are setting the lesson plan, you need to set the outcome of the learning. It is basically course objective or program objective. You take, so I am going to give you certain practical examples, and it's going to be more interactive, so that I also get to know that you have learned whatever has been delivered. Okay, it should be both the ways. I also will get to know many things from you all, since you belong to varied fields of knowledge. Fine. So when we say setting an objective is different from goal. Goal is long-sighted, and objectives are, for it's capsulated for a particular session. So we always set an objective, like for example, suppose we have a lesson on verbs, or we have a lesson on tenses. I'm taking example of English grammar because it's common and everyone can understand. So if I take an example of tenses, so I set an objective that to enable the students to identify the tenses. Like after the session is completed, the students will be able to identify the tenses. That will be the cognitive. Or the students will be able to enlist the number of tenses, or the students will be able to recognize, describe, explain. So these are the various verbs which will decide the levels of learning. So that is what we set the objective in advance before we even plan a lesson. Okay, so that is where Bloom's taxonomy helps us. That you cannot set directly an objective which will get it to the highest rung of achievement. So there are always low level of thinking to high level of thinking. So we have to cascade from lowest level to the highest level. We cannot directly jump into the highest level of knowledge. It has to be introduced, let it be even in graduation level or in schooling or or learning a badminton sport like badminton, or learning to cook, any skill or any knowledge, non-formal, informal, or serendipitous knowledge, whatever form of knowledge you are imparting or learning, there is always a level. Okay, first we aim at achieving the lowest order of thinking, and then as we progress further, we proceed to the highest order of thinking. So that's what Bloom has structured, those orders of thinking into levels of cognition. Okay, till now, whatever I said, is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, am I audible and clear? If you want me to simplify, I can simplify. See, I need to understand the, whether you are actually the comprehensive level. I need to understand so that I can word my sentences accordingly. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Very clear.
very
You are
clear.
audible as well as we have understood.
The choice of words, if you find it, I mean, I can always, re-explain or simplify it further. No problem. Okay. Anyway, since we all are addressing the faculties, I thought, why not, speak exclusively in one language. Okay. So what is Bloom's taxonomy? As I just said, it's a classification of the different objectives that the educators set for their students. Now, like Abha madam said just now, we need to have taxonomy even while assessing. Okay, during assessment, taxonomy is applicable while planning the lesson. It's also handy when we are planning any practical activity. Okay, so always, we have theory and practical in whichever stream of knowledge we are in. So during the practical sessions also, we need to take care of all the three objectives, all the three domains, and set the objectives accordingly. And similarly, while setting the question paper also, the questions should belong to all the three domains. It should not only belong to the cognition. It should not only belong to the cognitive domain of learning or knowledge. It should belong to the affective as well as psychomotor. Okay, so if, for example, if you're teaching environment science, just an example because it's a common subject. So the question should be set as, just giving you a basic example like, what is an environment? Okay, what are the steps taken to nurture nature? Okay, that is one question, which is like, this is cognitive domain. Affective domain, you can frame a sentence, you can frame a question which talks about sustainability of the environment. Like, how do you think the CSR funds can be spent to support the further sustenance of environment? Okay, so that it kindles the affective domain. It enables the students, or it motivates the students to think towards the environment, and not only to think, also to imagine the consequences if they don't conserve the environment now. Okay, and if you are talking about psychomotor, you can frame a question like, how will you, okay, what concrete steps would you take to increase the green thumb or green patch in your area? So that is how, any question paper, it should have at least, if you have 50% of cognitive domain, the remaining percent, at least 25 each, affective and psychomotor should be involved, should be included. That's what we aim at. So once you know what are the domains, once you know the levels of learning, once you know the different rungs of hierarchy, you will be easily able to not only set the objectives, but you will also be able to easily set the assessment patterns and the question paper covering all the three domains. Okay, and if this is done properly, if the activities are structured properly based on the domains, which will, engage all the levels of students. Like, some students are good at skilling, some students are good at talking, some students are good at engaging in verbal you can say exchange of words. So it will cater to all the needs, all the levels, all the criteria. That is what Bloom had in mind when he chalked or structured these objectives. Okay, so the classification basically is to understand, okay, so learning objectives, and to structure the learning objectives, and the terminology updated now: 6 levels in cognitive, 5 in affective, and there are 5 in psychomotor. Okay, so if you talk about cognitive, it is basically knowledge, as I just mentioned, then attitude, and psychomotor encompasses all the skills. Okay, so we will today talk about cognitive exclusively, and I'm going to take you through all the verbs that can be used, all the levels that are included within cognitive domain. Okay, so if we start with, basically, now one more thing I would like to show you, that all the three, they are not interdependent. They are assimilatory in nature, like they assimilate together. Okay, cognitive assimilates with psychomotor, psychomotor assimilates with affective. So there is a proper internalization of all the three domains by the time the student gets into the holistic personality. He gets into the, you can say, mold of being a holistic person. So all the three domains have to be judiciously dealt with because it's head, heart, and hand. Okay, so three H's are addressed to when we are following Bloom's taxonomy: head, heart, and hand. Okay, so the levels of learning. Now let us get into the actual topic. And I am quite sure when I wrote the learning objective for this particular FDP, I wrote very clearly that all the participants will be able to not only know the different levels, but they would be also able to identify the verbs that belong to the different levels. And by tomorrow's session, you will be able to even frame the objectives. And by the day after, you will tell me the different innovative methods of improving a particular lesson using all the three domains. Okay, so I'm quite sure about it. Right. So let us get into this real theory and knowledge of Bloom's taxonomy. So as you can see on the display, there are three domains: cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. So when we talk about cognitive, it is basically, I told you, the word recognize, cognize. Okay, even we write no in a letter or a mail, it is to bring to your cognizance. Okay, there is a company also, cognizance. So cognitive is nothing but knowledge, right? So there are 6 levels as per the 1956 version of Bloom's taxonomy. That first basic rung of knowledge is, basic rung of cognition is knowledge. What the students learn, what they remember. Okay, remembrance, remembering something is the basic base of the pyramid when it comes to cognitive domain. Then over the basic remembering comes understanding. Okay, once he understands, I'll give you examples. I'll give you ample number of examples. I'll show you many, application of the verbs. I mean, rest assured, from my side, I'll really make you understand if you haven't understood till now. Okay, so basically, first level of cognition is remembering. Over remembrance is comprehension, like understanding it further. Then comes application, then analysis, then synthesis, and then evaluation. Now, let me give you a basic example. Now, we are going to talk about your own stream of knowledge, but then just to make you understand whatever I want to say now, is that if a child, okay, initially, in the initial days of his learning, he learns alphabets, okay, he simply rote memorizes the alphabets. So that is the portion of remembering. In the lowest level of thinking, it is only rote memorization. Okay, they don't understand the meaning or the essence, or they don't actually get into the different, you can say, whatever is the root of a particular word, nothing. It is only rote memorization. That is the basic knowledge. And over that, okay, after remembering comes understanding. When we say understand, means they know, they can describe, they can explain. So once the child learns the alphabets, which is remembering, he knows, he can know the vowels from the consonants. And not only that, he also gets to coin the words. He learns new words. Okay, he gets this understanding of writing a particular word with vowel A, writing a particular word with vowel I, E, O, U, and then basically initially he learns 3-letter words, and then he so on and so forth, he goes to the next level of learning. Okay, that is after remembering, understanding, that is comprehension. And then comes application. Now application is basically whatever words he has learned, okay, he tries to form a sentence using the words that he knows. Whatever little any language that he learns, he tries to form a sentence. That is, he applies the words. And there are some students who may they have this habit, if we also, for that matter, if we learn a new word, we try to apply it as much as possible so that it gets completely ingrained in our vocabulary. Yes or no? So that is the stage of application. Application is whatever knowledge we have, we try to apply it. We try to, you can say, any other word for apply that you can think of, use it, or we try to perform it, enhance it. Okay, so that is application stage. And after application, analyzing. So once he starts forming the sentences, he starts writing paragraphs, he starts analyzing the poetry, he starts analyzing the prose. Okay, he tries to fathom the meaning of a particular author. Then synthesis is, now once he has read many genres, okay, genres like literary genres like tragedy, comedy, okay. So when he reads all the genres, then he comes to know that which author is good at which genre. So he starts synthesizing. And then evaluation. Now evaluation is, he tries to evaluate who is better at which genre. Okay, he forms his own judgment, he forms his own opinion. And then over evaluation, there is creation also, which I have it in the next slide. So creation is basically, he creates, after reading voraciously, he creates his own text, he creates his own literary genre, or he combines the literary genres and he creates his own fiction or non-fiction piece. So these are the different levels of thinking, from lowest order of thinking to highest order of thinking. From recognition, then comes understanding. After understanding comes application. After application comes the analysis, synthesis, evaluation, and create. Okay, these are different levels in the cognitive domain. Okay, so today we are only going to learn cognitive domain. Affective and psychomotor, we will do it in the next 2 days. Okay, not both the days. Second day, affective and psychomotor. Third day, classroom management. Okay, till now, whatever I told you, is it clear? Because it's more like I am only speaking. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all
Yes,
of you
ma'am.
are able to follow?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So, and affective is basically, receiving, responding, valuing, organization, and characterization. So you receive a particular, now kindness as a virtue. The student understands that one has to be kind. See why the uniform, uniform is introduced as clothing pattern in the school, so that, there is no differentiation based on the financial status. Okay, so he tries to receive everyone equally, and then he responds to, suppose a particular student is absent for a while, and then he, on inquiring, he gets to know that he was absent because he could not pay the fees. So he responds, he tries to respond, that he feels sad for that particular friend of his. Then he values, then he starts valuing the resources that he is enjoying and the others are deprived of. And then organization is basically, he sets his own set of morality. He understands how one should behave in the society. And then finally, characterization is internalization. So he internalizes certain virtues, and that becomes his characteristics. Like whenever we say non-violence, we get Gandhiji's image in front of us. So that is internalization. Whenever we say ISRO, we get Abdul Kalamji in front of our eyes. And whenever we hear anything about space, we immediately remember Sunita Williams. So that is because she has internalized the value system of that particular field. Okay, and that's so popular that the word matches with her demeanor or her presence or existence. So that is receiving, responding, valuing, organizing, and then characterization of the particular value set. That is affective domain. So we are going to learn the verbs, and we are going to even learn how all these levels can be imparted in a single lesson while planning a lesson or session. Okay, psychomotor is basically our reflex actions, then basic fundamental movements, then perceptual movements, then physical activities, skilled movements, and now non-discursive communication. Now, I'm also going to give you in a other set of words, psychomotor domain. So basically, like initially while we are learning driving, we just know what are the various parts that have to be operative while driving. Then we learn the fundamental movement of driving. We just learn to drive. Then we perceive that we can also multitask while driving. Like while driving, we can also change the song, or we can take a call. Okay, and then the movements become so attuned and so internalized that we start, we become a professional in the particular skill set. So those are the different levels in psychomotor. Okay, so let us start with cognitive initially, and then we will go to the other domains. So when we talk about cognitive, first is remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So when we are talking about remembering, it is just rote memorization without knowing the meaning. Okay, without getting into the meaning, simply memorizing something is remembering. Like retrieving, recognizing, recalling, okay, from long-term memory. Like, you just ask a student to enlist the number of laws, or enlist in hotel management, if I can give an example, what are the different cuisines? Just remember, retrieve, recognize, recall. Okay, it's a basic lowest level of thinking. Fine. And then in understand, they start associating, or they construct a meaning from various graphic images through interpretation. Exemplifying is giving examples, categorizing, summarizing. Okay, so that is second order of learning. Then they start applying. So if it is example from hotel management, I can give that once they recall the various ingredients to prepare a particular cuisine, and then they understand which ingredient holds what value. So why lemon should be squeezed? Because it is rich in vitamin C, or it will give a pungency to the dish. Okay, so they try to classify, they try to exemplify, they try to interpret, they try to find out a hidden worth in doing any act. Okay, and then applying is based on that. They also, if somebody is down with fever, they understand that vitamin C, lime is a good source of vitamin C. So they apply this knowledge and they give them the lime juice if he is having cold and cough. That is application of the knowledge. Okay, then next comes analyzing. Then he understands which are the various vitamin C sources, and which is affordable, which is not affordable. Okay, and then he categorizes, analyzes, and differentiates, attributing certain characters to it. Okay, and which is easily available, which has a better shelf life, which can be stored for a longer period of time, all that. And then he evaluates he makes his judgment, he tries to research, checks on it, critiques on it, and then he creates his own pattern. Then he creates his own dish, or he creates his own, like many people squeeze lemon into water and they store it as ice cubes. And whenever they feel like having a lemonade, they just add it to the water and they drink. So he might come up with his own brand of lemonade and call it, some very creative name he can offer to the dish. Okay, so that is how different from lowest thinking, order of thinking, to the highest order of thinking, the cognitive domain takes a individual to. Okay, it's hierarchical. And the figure, this is basically a very good diagram for you to understand. So the basically remembering is just recognizing, recalling, rote memorization, then understand, then apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. Okay, so now the verbs that can be used in remember are list. I'm going to talk about a lot of verbs, but this is just an example. So list, recite. So they do not apply their mind anywhere here in remembering. It's only rote memorization. It's only trying to identify, trying to recall, trying to label, quote. Okay, it doesn't go beyond remembrance. It doesn't go beyond remembering. It limits to the, suppose recite Newton's third law of motion. He just will say, till a uniform force of action acts upon a body, there is an inertia. So he will just, without knowing the meaning, he will just narrate something. That is remember. Can you give me an example of remember from your field of knowledge? Any one example? You can write in the chat box also.
Remembering the definitions.
Yes, very good, ma'am. Remembering the definitions, then, or just reciting the definitions. Just simple recital without knowing the meaning is remembering. They don't know the meaning. They don't understand the worth. It's only recital. Anybody else?
Poems, like,
Yeah, wrote, just memorizing the poems without knowing the meaning. Okay. Somebody else? Nilamri ma'am? Okay, label the diagram. Very good. Okay, just cram the formulas. Okay, people just there are students, pupils, not people, pupils. They just cram the formulae. They don't know, like sine theta plus cos theta is equal to tan theta. So they really don't know what it means. They just cram. That is the lowest order of thinking. Okay, labeling the diagram. Okay, in your own field, whatever you remember, whatever you can recollect, you can tell me in the lowest order of thinking.
Ma'am, in my case, the students just blindly remember the different methods and techniques without actually understanding what those techniques are. So they'll just write about 8, 10 techniques blindly, just, without analyzing or understanding them.
Excellent. Yeah. Just, enumerating. Okay. Just enlisting, enumerating, recalling without understanding the techniques, basically. Very good. What do you teach, ma'am?
Ma'am, I teach them human resource management. I'm
Okay.
a teacher for the MCOM, Masters of Commerce.
Okay. Okay. So that, like, they just know the policies. They just, cram the policies, and they just, you even say, it's like parroting it without knowing the meaning.
Yes, right.
Okay. So that is remember. They don't understand the gravity of the policy, or how it was formed, or who formed it, who coined it, what was the purpose, what is the history behind a particular policy. Nothing they know. They just know. So and so section says so and so things. Okay, that is remembering. Okay, so that is the first level of or first order of thinking, first level of cognitive domain. So I'll directly take you. Now I'll have this example, a very interesting example why I picked up, so that you all might relate to it. Basically, our parents, they are not well conversant with smartphones. Okay, so when you talk about remembering that level of cognition, it's basically they just know that how the phone can be operated. Like they just know how to receive a call, how to call somebody, okay, and how to bookmark a particular that has to be taught, of course. How to highlight, how to search. These are the basic activities that can be done using a smartphone. Then they start understanding how to post, or how to subscribe a particular channel, how to tag somebody, or they start understanding, suppose it's GPay. If you have an app called Google Pay, how do you use it? How do you at least open the GPay? Fine, that is understanding level. Applying is they start paying using GPay. They start editing the text, or they start uploading a video. Fine. And then they apply their knowledge of Google Pay to check the balance in their account, and also they check that they auto transact. Like they feel that one of their bank accounts is having a decimal savings, so the balance has to be maintained. So immediately that they learn to auto transfer from their own bank account. Okay, so these are the stages of application. These are the activities that belong to the stage of application. And analyzing, they start surveying. They start, like, suppose they are good at, you have taught them, or the parents, they themselves, they learn the Insta Reels. So there is an algorithm, right, in Instagram. If you see one particular genre of Reels, the same kinds and the same genre keeps on repeating. So they start mind mapping, they start surveying further their interest, their subject of interest. They link that with the other subjects of their interest, and they validate. They try to understand whether the product, suppose you can take an example of shopping. Retailing is the biggest therapy for any age group or any gender. So when they are shopping online, they validate the quality. They try to link one particular purchase with another. They survey what are the prices in different apps, like Amazon sells it for how much. Then you have so many platforms. Myntra sells the same product for what cost. Okay, so they start surveying, they start linking, they start validating the purchase. And evaluating is they have their own set of posts that they need to See, they just scroll through the unnecessary ones. They start moderating. So they are refined in their search now. They are refined in spending their time. They even set the time limit in Insta. Okay, they may even set, they know, they go to the setting. This is the next level of cognizance, that they go to the setting and they check their time. They set it as half an hour or 45 minutes so that, the screen time is saved. They don't waste a lot of time on social media. And then creating is, they create their vlogs, or they film a reel. They understand, they try to learn how a reel can be made out of photographs that are taken. And then they have their own smaller versions of podcast, or they direct a small a reel or a movie, or not movie, but then a small incidents, like some birthday party in the house. So they just try to film it and attach a song to the foreground and background, and they create a small film which can be posted. And then they even know what kind of songs align with which event. So this is creating. I think now it's clear to all of you. Is it clear now? The example that I gave you now?
Yes, ma'am.
It's
Yes,
clear,
ma'am.
right? Can you relate with this?
Yes, ma'am, very much.
Isn't it? So basically, the smartphone has become virtue of necessity now. Everybody has to use it to book an app, or to book a Uber or Ola. Initially, there is an hesitation. They are hesitant, but once they know, they remember the facts, then they understand how it has to be done, then they apply, then they analyze. Okay, what time of the day, what are the fares? They analyze. If we go in the morning, the fares are double, and while we use it in the non-peak hours, the fares are lesser comparatively. Then they calculate, they evaluate, and then they create. Okay, so these are the various orders of thinking. Now, let us get into the actual designing of taxonomy. So these are the verbs. So when we talk about verbs, let me take you to this slide. So in the remembering level, the common verbs which can be used are arrange, define, describe, okay, identify, label, match, memorize, name, outline, quote, recall, recognize, repeat, reproduce, retrieve, and state. These are some of the examples of the verbs. I'm going to give you the PPT. I'll share the PPT with ma'am so that she can share it with you all. So the list of verbs you will have handy for you to set the objectives based on Bloom's taxonomy. Okay. So the first, some examples also, just to make you further understand the concept. So recognize the primary colors for preschool. Recall the names. This is the remembering level of Bloom's, okay, of cognitive domain. So recognize the primary colors, recall the names of the days, then identify the basic shapes such as circle, square. There is a brand called Fisher Price, okay, there are game libraries also nowadays. Like, the libraries offer certain cognitive games or cerebral games for different age groups. So Fisher Price always comes up with innovative design so that the child learns as per the age group of the child. You can gift a child a Fisher Price toy. So they identify the basic shapes. They know circles, sizes of the circle, what is a square, what's a rectangle, what's a triangle. Okay, that is identified, just identified, lowest order of thinking. Then define simple vocabulary. Like if you are reading a story in the class, they just know basic story. They just memorize the story, not knowing the in-depth meaning of the story. So these all these come under remember. Then name the 50 states and their capital, which is in the 5th standard. Just naming. They don't know when the states were formed or why that particular place is the capital. Nothing they know. They just know the names. Okay. Then describe the process of photosynthesis. Example, I've taken from different subjects so that you get to know how it can be written for various subjects. So when we talk about describe the process of photosynthesis, it is basically they just know that sun is required. Then leaves which are green in color form their own food or glucose. That is the process of photosynthesis. It is a basic learning, remembering the facts. They do not know what is the energy resource that is formed, why it is formed. Okay, all those details they don't know. They just know. They can just draw a leaf, sun, then the arrows, and there is a photosynthesis happening. Okay, so that is the basic description. Then matching the historical events with the corresponding dates on a timeline. Then, 1947, 1847 uprisal. Then 1947, we had our freedom, and then 1950 we became sovereign. So all this timeline, they just remember history. They don't get into the details of who were there in the 1857 uprisal. Okay, why was it not successful? Fine, all those details they don't get into. They just remember the historical facts, events with the timeline. Then labeling the major bones. If you are taking science, in skeleton they know which bone. They just know the bones. They don't know the function and all. They can just remember. They can label the bones. Then identify literary elements, like if you give them a novel, they know what is plot, what is setting, what is the cast, what is the theme. They just can identify the literary elements. That is identification, lowest order of thinking. Then define, okay. Then the verbs that can be used for the college level, 11th onwards, recall the formulae. Then you have this describe main principles of theory of evolution. State the first law of thermodynamics. Recognize the major contributions. So these are just remembering. Okay, now is it clear, all of you? Memorize key terminology. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is basic remembrance without getting into the fact or figure. Now in master level, define and differentiate between major categories, okay, of computer programming. They just know the difference because they have learnt it by heart. They don't know the depth of the difference, or they don't understand why there is a difference. They just define it. Okay, so these are the various verbs that can be used. Now what I want you to do is I want you to write at least any 3 of you or 4 of you. I don't expect from the entire class. Write any 3 objectives using the verbs for remembering, which is the lowest order of thinking in cognitive domain. I'll show you the list of verbs also for you to write. But I want you to write in your own field of knowledge, whatever you are teaching, whichever level of students that you are teaching. Use these verbs and write one objective. That in particular lesson that you are teaching, how you can set an objective for the lowest order of thinking, that is remember in cognitive domain. Any one of you? I had given you the examples as well. Any two objectives you can set and give me using remembering, which is the lowest order of thinking. State any 2 approaches to management. Sir is writing. Thank you, sir. Identify the different methods of performance appraisal. Okay. Just identifying. Very good. No, who are the initial contributors? Okay, you are talking about the questions that you'll ask in the question paper. Now we are setting an objective, sir. So while setting an objective under cognitive domain, the basic remembering, what objective, how will you use the verb? Okay, list out the basic types of yoga. Very good. So instead of writing who are the initial contributors in the field of organizational development, it can be just enlisting the contributors in the field of organizational development. So always when you are writing an objective, okay, or using Bloom's, it has to be written as to enable the students to recall. That way. So the verb will come as to enable the students to define the contract, like Geeta Madam has written define, or to enable the students to name the forms of family. Okay. Or to enable the students, or by the end of the session, the students will be able to, you can state the different types of cuisines. Fine. Describe a particular type of particular principle in the theory of evaluation. So it is always what do you foresee after completion of the particular chapter. So when I was preparing the PPT, I also had to foresee, what I would achieve from you all after the particular session. What do I need to achieve? So while setting the objectives, I had to write that, by the end of the session, the participants would identify and describe the 6 levels of Bloom's taxonomy. Okay. And the second would be in application, the participants by the end of the session would design tasks and assessments that align with each level of Bloom's taxonomy and differentiate. The participants will be able to differentiate between lower order and higher order thinking skills, or incorporate Bloom's taxonomy in classroom instruction. So these were the learning outcomes that I set for myself. Okay. So always we need to set the objectives before we embark in our teaching journey. Without objectives, it's like, just aimlessly walking through the concept. And always we can check whether the objective has been, and how do you check if the objective is achieved? By asking questions, by taking the feedback, or by setting a proper comprehensive question paper. You get to know whether the objectives are achieved. So when I write that to assess or to apply the knowledge of Bloom's taxonomy in setting the question paper. So I might ask you by giving a particular concept, and may ask you to frame objective and subjective questions for 10 marks each. And by seeing how you frame, I get to know whether you have understood the concept. Okay, by asking you to write the example, I get to know how much of it you have understood. So just for you, just a recapitulation, 6 levels. The basic level is remembering. Okay, over remembering is understanding. Clear? Now I have been speaking for 1 hour. In this 1 hour, in this 1 hour, I hope you could learn something out of whatever I spoke. You can just speak to me. Did you learn anything at all? Was it new to you, or you were well conversant with the whole thing?
Any questions?
Was it new, or you were conversant with the whole concept?
And for me, it is not new, but I understood different perspective to understand, because everyone learn, like, what I learned from sections is different. Your section is little specifically mentioning about, like, how we can understand the concept in different way.
Okay.
That is what I learned.
So I have concretized the abstract basically.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. Anyone else? Thank you, sir. So these concepts are taught, to the students of education. Anyone else? Suppose if, and you also let me know if it will be of any use to you. Will it be of any use to you when you are mapping the course objective with program objective? I'll be teaching you what is a course objective, what is outcome-based education. Like when we're talking about, okay, thank you. Okay. See, also I wanted to gather if it's not rudiments that I'm teaching, I should be also advanced in my, because I'm addressing an audience which is already, in the system for quite some time. So I should not be stuck into the rudiments. Am I progressively able to explain to you? I don't want to get stuck in the basic rudiments of this.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, thinking that you would not know, I delved so deep into this topic. Okay, hope it's not repetition or, it's beneficial. No? Okay, thank you. Fine. So that was the basic lowest order of thinking. Let us go to the next. Next is understanding. Okay, now I told you that after remembering comes understanding. When we talk about understanding, you can see the figure also, it's quite self-explanatory, that he reads to understand. He is not rote memorizing. He interprets, he translates. I mean, a particular student, this level of thinking enables the student to illustrate, infer, categorize, distinguish, predict, review. Okay, he starts getting into the depth of the knowledge or depth of the subject. Yeah, he demonstrates. So quickly I'll go through because I don't want to really drag it further, because the application, evaluation and creation are more important. Remembering and understanding are the rudiments of cognitive domain, which everyone would know. There is a thin line, blurry line between remembering and understanding. So you should know the difference between these two. So explain the differences between hot and cold temperature. Okay, he starts, but if he has to explain, he needs to know. Then summarize, he reads a story and he writes a precise, or he summarizes the main events of the story. Okay, then classification, like he classifies animals into domestic and wild. So for that he needs to understand, right? Then compare and contrast the life cycles of butterfly and frog. So he knows that he has learned by heart in remembering stage. He learns the cycle of butterfly, he learns the cycle of frog. And in this understanding stage, he compares and contrasts between the life cycles. Clear? And describing the water cycle and how it is important to Earth's ecosystem. Then he interprets a simple bar graph or a pie chart. Fine? So these are the levels of understanding. These are the verbs that can be used when you are setting an objective use for understanding, which is the second order of thinking. Okay? Then discusses the cause and effect, explain the role of producer, predict the outcome of a simple experiment, paraphrase. Suppose there is a poem, he paraphrases the poem. Paraphrasing is he writes the poem into a prose. He writes his own interpretation of the poem. And then illustrate, describe. So these are different verbs that can be used for the second order of thinking, that is understand. Then summarize, explain. These are all like evaluate the validity and reliability of research articles. So these are all understand. Once you understand only, you'll be able to validate and you will be able to check the reliability. Okay, so that comes under understanding. Then we have application. Application, you can see that they draw, they manipulate, they construct, modify, predict. So when you are using the application verbs, it has to be written like, for example, after the session will enable the students to perform, you can say CPR on a particular patient, or perform dialysis on a particular patient if they are healthcare students, or it will enable the students to manipulate the formulae, or it will enable them to manipulate the results to get into a new solution, or modify the current structure, predict, even in research also they predict the future, they model or they predict based on the current event or based on the current pattern, they predict the future pattern. Okay. For example, the gender pattern in a particular state, they predict based on the current findings. So these are the application stage of cognitive domain. Okay. So I'll give this to you. Now I just want to, and then in application, you can see that use the primary colors, just using. Now, when we are talking about colors, in remembering stage, they just know what are the colors. And in understanding, they understand that which are the dark colors, which are the light colors. Then if they have to apply, they know that if which two primary and primary hues can be mixed to form a secondary hue. And then they apply that knowledge in painting a particular object. And then they further, when they are analyzing, it is that which color are soothing and which color are dark and which color is used for which event. Okay, they try to further analyze and then they evaluate their own choice of colors and then they create their own pattern or context of colors. So that is how there is a different order of thinking. You just take any field of knowledge, you will get all the 6 levels of thinking. And you can set objectives based on all the 6 orders of thinking. Okay, so remembering is over. Understanding, hopefully you have comprehended well. And now application, when we talk about the verbs that can be, the verbs that are used are use the primary colors, apply the knowledge, demonstrate, okay, apply the concept of symmetry. Fine. I'll just scroll through the slides for application and then I want each one of you to at least write one objective of understanding and one of application, so that I know that you can apply it well now. Or I'll give you certain objectives. You have to, that exercise I'll do it after I complete cognitive domain, wherein I'll be giving you cluster of verbs and I will ask you to segregate the verbs into different levels of thinking. Because the verbs are important. It hinges on verbs, basically. You cannot write explain for remembering. You have to write explain. For describe is for remembering, but explain, when he has to demonstrate, is only for application. You cannot write demonstrate for the first level of thinking. So the verbs are important. Okay, with practice, you will learn which verb to be used for what. So what I want you to do, you can even say it orally, need not write. See, what I want you to do is use the 3, like remembering you have already done. For understanding, and application and applying, from your field, just understanding and applying, you write one objective. Yes, any one objective for each, understanding and applying. Explain the difference between primary group and secondary group with examples. Okay. This is understanding and applying. Analyze financial statements to identify trends. Yes, very good. Then discuss the ethical practices in marketing. Okay, the student, it will enable the students to discuss. Okay, to discuss. Okay, so whenever you are writing an objective, it's preferably to analyze, to explain, to discuss, to assess the financial health of a business. Very good, man. So to assess is under understanding, and others there are 74 no in the class. To apply the concept ABC upon real-time case study to compute the following. Okay. Okay, anyone else? Someone said hotel management, no, they belong to. So can you give me an example? Mandeep Singh ji. In your arena, can you give me 3 objectives? One for remembering, one for understanding, and one for application.
Sometime back, I heard that assess you said as understanding. Actually, assess is for evaluation, not for understanding. When you are expecting the students to be able to assess something, they are in a position to evaluate. Yeah. So that's not understanding. That's fourth order Bloom's taxonomy. That is evaluating.
Did I use it for understanding?
Yeah, you just said sometime back.
Okay. See, you need to understand to assess. In that aspect, I must have said, but actually assess is evaluation. Because to apply customer service principles to handle guest complaints. Okay. So the crux of the entire session is that you should just know the difference between all the verbs, which verb can be used where, and how to align the particular verb with a particular level of thinking or order of thinking. Yes, sir. Mandeep, sir, can you give me the example from hotel management? Okay. What I'll do is I'll just so under evaluation, assessing comes, of course, judging, criticizing, determining, deciding, validating, verifying, okay, prioritizing, concluding. These are the verbs that we use for evaluating. And then the examples for analyzing, again, classifying, breaking down into further or simplifying, breaking down, differentiating, deconstructing something. Okay, based on the contextual application, like based on the context that we are using, we can derive various verbs into different order of thinking. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll give you some cluster of verbs, and you can differentiate the verbs using a particular color, not color code exactly, you won't be able to, but at least you can categorize the verbs into different levels of thinking. Okay. Shall we do that? We'll just go through the works. For creating, it is design, construct, develop, formulate, build, produce, generate, invent, plan, establish, imagine, combine, integrate, synthesize, devise, choreograph, compose, and arrange. Okay. So I'll just take you to the cluster of verbs which can be segregated into, so that I would know if I have taught well. Anyway, the verb clusters are available for affective domain, not the cognitive. Otherwise, see, had it been an offline session, we had other kinds of activities also, like spinning the wheel and then getting into the different verbs and formulating a particular objective using the verb. Anyway, so what shall we do now? Will you be coming up with any objective of using all the 6 levels? Any concept that you can take? That's what I was asking Shagufta madam also to give me the syllabus, so that we can have a practical application of the cognitive domain in the class. Any concept that you are going to teach or that you have taught recently, can you name a concept? Anything that you have taught in the past or you are teaching at present, and how will you formulate all the 6 levels of objectives? 6 level. How will you formulate 6 orders of thinking? Like remembering, understanding, then applying, all the 6. Can anyone please say something, because it's only me talking?
Participants, please, ma'am is asking.
See, these are the 6 levels, no? So anything that you can cite now using the 6 levels of cognitive domain. Whatever concept that you are teaching. Usually, these sessions are interactive.
I'm teaching ratios, ma'am. Ratio analysis is one of the concept.
Okay.
So in that, you ask about the Bloom taxonomy. What I have applied is basically it's an MBA students. Many are from non-commerce background.
Okay.
So for the ratio, the basic concept, first I need to make them understand the elements of financial statements. The commerce background students, they might be knowing, but others, they are not aware about much worse with the assets and liabilities and all.
Mm-hmm.
So then we need to describe the importance of balance sheet in financial reporting, how these ratios are helping the relationship between, framing a relationship between 2 elements in the financial statements. Then the accounting, then afterwards I have given formulas are there, so they need to remember again the formulas.
Okay. Yeah. First is merely remembering the formulas.
Formulas and they need to remember the elements in financial statements also.
Yeah.
Then applying the formulas, they'll solve. Then analyzing, they make they can compare the they can have an interpretation on the ratios. After finding the formulas, when they get certain ratios, after applying the formulas, if they get ratios, they can then have a proper interpretation on that.
Yeah.
So-
And then they analyze further
Further.
the fiscal deficit or whatever.
Correct.
Yeah. And then they evaluate the fiscal prudence of.
Correct.
Hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
And then creating their own
Yeah.
equity ratio. Okay, ma'am. Thank you for responding.
Okay.
Anyone from hotel management can give me, because it's quite interesting, that field. There are participants, no, from that field. Anyone else?
Good afternoon. This is
Yes.
Praveen Thakre.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So basically, I am teaching in a MCA course. So mostly we have the course content related with the programming. Okay. So I just want to know, means generally all the PG students are used those concepts for the applying part, and then evaluating and the creating.
Okay.
Yeah. So at most.
But they have to remember also, no, certain things they have to understand. The remembering and understanding are the lowest order which they need to imbibe before they apply and analyze, right?
Correct.
So in MCA also, they initially they need to remember and understand any concept.
Yes, of course, that is true. But on the PG level, mostly the students, those are coming basically aware of the basics things of the programming languages. So mostly the concept they are applying in the projects, or they are using the languages for the internship. So I mean, in the Bloom's taxonomy, the mostly we use the applying, analyzing, and evaluating and creating. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, got it. So you mean to say when you are setting an objective, it directly starts from applying, analyzing, evaluating.
Even in the university program also, the most of the course contents are starting from the applying itself.
Okay. Okay, so since we deal with the bachelor's as well as the master students, and they are new to a particular domain, so we need to even brush the previous knowledge, okay,
Yes.
and then make them understand, and then they apply, analyze, evaluate, and then create. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for responding.
Hello, ma'am. I
Yes,
have
sir.
a query. Good evening. This is Dr. Sadia Merchant. Ma'am, I just wanted to know, I teach PG students. Those are MCOM students. We have very less in terms of assessing the evaluating and creating order of thinking. So my question is there any thumb rule as to how much percentage for PG level should we have in terms of assessment, the different thinking order? Like most it should be like 20% for remembering or 10%. Is there any?
No. Nothing specifically I have come across yet.
Okay, so it depends upon the program and course outcomes, and accordingly we can develop the assessment.
Exactly, and it has to be progressive. That's all.
Okay.
The only thumb rule is it should be progressive. So it is always built upon the previous. So when you are building upon the previous, it cannot be, and when the objectives are set, it cannot be remembering after analyzing.
Right.
Okay, that's what.
Okay,
So
but there's
not essentially all the 6 levels have to be used when you are setting a lesson plan. When you are setting objective for a lesson plan, these are the 6 levels. You can use any 3 or whatever is convenient, whatever is applicable for the particular lesson that you are going to teach.
All right, ma'am. So there's no thumb rule as to the allotment of percentage in.
No. I haven't come across yet. If any, I'll find out though, but then I haven't come across any percentage, allotment.
Yes, because even I haven't come across. We've been using this past one year. We just were autonomous, so this is our 3rd year. So we just started using it a year back. So I haven't come across. So that was my query.
I'll also find out
Yes.
by tomorrow. I'll let you know again.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you.
I hope it's not boring.
No,
It's
no,
not
ma'am.
boring, no, ma'am.
No, ma'am. It was quite interesting. There are quite useful insights that we came across. Though some of it we knew, but few things, yes. Thank you, ma'am. It was very nicely explained.
Okay, I had actually, timed the lecture in such a manner. I wanted to get into the depth of all the verbs of all the levels of thinking. But since when I got to know that most of you are well aware of the verbs, so I just ran through the PPT then after the first 2 levels. Otherwise, I had timed it in such a manner that first initial 1 hour for the 3 levels and the next 1 hour for the next 3 levels. But I could conveniently brush through all the levels in the first hour itself. So, but I can always run whatever is your requirement. You can please be vocal about it so that we can go further. Okay, one second. So we saw analyzing the various examples of analyzing. So see, the cognitive domain is done then. So shall we go to the psychomotor domain, the affective domain?
Yes, ma'am.
We can go, right?
Yeah.
So in affective domain, there are 5 levels basically. Initial level is receiving or attending, willing to be aware of something, some situation or setting, gives attention by choice. Okay. Then responding is willingly participating, volunteering, and then valuing is they have the students behave in a certain way very frequently that begins to identify with the behavior and their commitment. Like, so for example, we always, when we are talking about communication skills also, we say that there is something called, communication which is not explicit, which is implicit, like coming late every day. So that is the value or worth of time that a student has. So when we are talking about the affective domain, it is imbibing all these in students. So it's like valuing, organizing, becoming systematic. They can compare and contrast the values and choices, and they try to prioritize the values over the others. Okay. And then the final one is character. That becomes the internalization or characterization. Okay. So these are the different levels. And the affective domain, besides Bloom, Kratwal also included, like, he was the one who modified it further, like receiving, selectively attending to stimuli, responding to stimuli, valuing, attaches value or worth to something, and organizing is conceptualizing the value and resolves the conflict between it and the other values, and internalization and integrating the value. So when we are talking about the verbs, okay, that we can use in different levels. So in the first level, that is receiving, fine. So these are the verbs that can be used, like acknowledges the student, or the to enable the student to acknowledge a particular problem, or enable the student to attend to a particular event or crisis. Okay, to identify, to listen, to name. So these are all receiving. Receiving is the act of receipt, act of receiving after having created an awareness, be aware of, to receive a particular knowledge, being willing to listen to something is receiving. Then responding is they agree to, they assist, they clarify, they communicate, contribute, cooperate, discuss. These all come under responding. This is a second order of thinking when it comes to the affective domain. Then valuing, when we talk about valuing, the verbs used are accept, approve, he approves. Okay. Then debates, demonstrates, differentiates, then identifies. So these are the different verbs that are used under valuing. And organization, if we say, the verbs that are used are classifying, comparing, then explaining, formulating, identifying, integrating. So basically here the order of thinking is from receiving, from being aware, to responding, to finding a value or attaching a worth, to organizing or integrating, and then characterization. Clear? So the verb highest order of affective domain, the verbs used are to display, to exemplify, then to modify, to preserve. So these are the verbs. So again, see what we have. Hello, am I audible? So the clear verbs that are used in cognitive, in affective domain, there can be verbs which are used. It is contextual, basically. You cannot say that a particular verb can be used for only particular level. It is based on the context in which it is used. Okay. So when we talk about environment, suppose now, see, for example, if you are talking about any concept like any concept that I have taught in the recent past, if I take an example from grammar, okay, receiving is they just receive the different in grammar, like cognition is basically all the understanding of the concept. But when I talk about the grammar, when I give the examples, or when I talk about writing a paragraph on a certain topic, okay, they just receive the information, then they respond, they start valuing, and then they organize their thought process, and they coin their own, it comes up with their own opinion, they opinionate, and then they come up with their own script. Okay, these are the different levels in affective domain. So can you give me an example? I'll also scroll down further. So example, being aware or attending something in the environment, okay? Then showing some new behavior because of the learning about the environment. Then having some involvement or commitment. Then integrating a new value into one's own, like, not wasting the power, switching off the fan, or not plucking the leaves unnecessarily, being sustainable. And then generalization of acting consistently with the new value. So these are the various behavioral descriptions for affective domain. So the key words are also like when we are talking about only the first order of thinking in affective domain, receiving, it's like ask, choose, describe. And then here the verbs are not very, there is a blurry verb in this. It is based on the context that is used. Okay. So basically cognitive domain, most of the objectives that are set are based on, or that rotates or around the cognitive domain. Affective and psychomotor, again, major chunk on psychomotor. Affective domain, only few verbs and few instances are used. Can you just give me an example based on whatever I said now? I'll plan more activities for tomorrow. Yes, the other participants who haven't been speaking at all. Can you give me an example of affective domain in whichever concept that you have taught? Any one concept that you can give, and different order of thinking in the same. First, what will you enable the students to do, and then what will be the second order of thinking in affective, and then the third, fourth, and so on and so forth? Okay. Any one of you can speak. Priya ma'am. No, like I gave you an example of environment, or I gave you an example in saving water. Whatever is your concept, affective domain, how will you use the verbs and how will you progressively increase their order of thinking through your objectives? Any one example? The levels are in front of you. See, for receiving, responding, valuing, organizing, and characterizing. What kind of activity and what verbs will you use? Can you give me an example? Whichever is your stream of.
Ma'am, please repeat.
See, affective domain, we have 5 levels. Okay, I just told you that there are 5 levels of 5 orders of thinking in affective domain, isn't it? First is receiving, the basic order of thinking in affective domain. We have completed with the coordinative because I saw, I mean, I could gather that most of you have understood and you have been using it also. So I thought of shifting to affective domain.
No problem, ma'am. Just repeat your question.
Yeah, the question is, all these 5 levels like receiving, responding, valuing, organizing, and characterization. I want any one of you to give me an example by stating the objective that you would chalk for receiving, the objective that you would write for responding, objective that you would write for valuing, organization, and characterization. So any concept that you are teaching. Okay, I can give you an example so that you know in the same lines. At least give me one concept that any concept that you're teaching so that I can give you an example.
Human resource management.
Human resource management, okay. So when you're talking about human resource management, receiving is the basic level. So any particular concept in human resource management?
Ma'am, maybe recruitment.
Recruitment, okay. So they are aware of the policies of recruitment comes under receiving. They are just aware of the policies of recruitment. They can enumerate the policies, okay. So they can acknowledge the second, responding. In responding, they will further respond to the birth of the policies, you can say, or they'll agree to a particular policy being institutionalized. And valuing is they demonstrate in writing the rules and regulations or in framing the mission and vision of an organization. Okay, and organization is the next one is internalization. Like they establish the value system while framing the HR manual. Like if they are designing an HR manual, so how do they adapt and how do they arrange or categorize? And they prepare a particular policy. They have to also make a policy, right? So it comes in organization, under organization, that preparing a particular policy by imbibing the values that, by utilizing the values that they have imbibed already. And then characterization is they practice a particular mode of conduct. Okay. So this way, receiving, responding, valuing, organization, and characterization can be used in setting the objectives. These are the different verbs that can be used in when you are setting an objective to assess the affective domain of the students. So I'll give an example. Okay, HR, we spoke about the manuals and the policies. So anyone else can give any other example, affective domain levels? I'm just going through the HR topics. Any other? So basically human resource also involves these attitudes and emotions. Okay. So main encouraging the employees to attend, being inclusive, encouraging them to be aware of the inclusivity is receiving. Clear? Then responding is basically the employees actively participating in feedback sessions or conflict resolution. That comes under responding. There, it is participation and engagement. First is awareness and willingness to listen. And third is they develop a commitment to a certain value. So here the objective will be like employees consistently demonstrate ethical behavior and inclusivity. And then organizing is like, they balance the productivity and employee, a manager to enable the students to balance the productivity and employee well-being while making business decisions is organizing. So when we talk about simple receiving, it is awareness and willingness to listen. When we are mentioning about responding, it is participation and engagement. When we are talking about valuing, it is further order of thinking that is developing commitment to values. Then organization is integrating values into the behavior. So the objectives are set which will assess their integration. Okay. Then comes characterizing, like internalizing the values as part of identity. So when we are talking about a leader championing workplace diversity initiatives. Okay. So to enable the students to, you can say, practice inclusivity in the workplace is characterization. Am I clear? How can we use affective domain in hotel management? Can anybody tell me affective domain in hotel management? Like we gave the example of HR policies, inclusivity, and internalizing the policy making, and valuing the mission and vision, then characterizing. Similarly, if we have to set objectives for affective domain in hotel management, what will be the example? So awareness and willingness in hotel management. There are participants.
Can I try?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So maybe in receiving, as much as I've understood what you're trying to explain, they would be understanding the importance of the guest satisfaction. And in responding, maybe they would like to actually do that by greeting the guests warmly and having a courteous communication and the valuing, right? Huh?
Yeah.
So
That
in
is
that,
responding. Then valuing is?
That is showing the commitment to the hospitality ethics. And then in organization, it would be maybe a seamless service delivery. There should be no problems, no complaints, empathy. And in the characterization, maybe you should have a service-oriented mindset, professionalism, and having higher hospitality standards, and sustainability and all those things.
So when we talk about any pattern of behavior, internalization comes under applying the food safety measures, come what may. Okay. Then presentation standards. Some hotel outlets are known for their presentation, their hygiene, their food safety measures.
Yeah.
So to enable the students to achieve. So here the verbs are not like linked with the objective. Here it is more contextual. It comes with practice. But which level of order you are implying to explain is automatically seen through the level of, through the contextual objectives that you are setting. Okay, for psychomotor and cognitive. No, but basic level is to suppose, now let me share that page with you. So in this display, you can see various verb clusters. Now feel is receiving. Okay, you can feel is just receiving. Okay, then perform comes under responding. Attend is again receiving. Search. So this way, you know, whatever verbs that you are using based on the context, it can be used for expressing different levels of affective domain. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. So let me give you some examples also. So can you, if you can see it on the screen, receiving is just awareness and attention. It is to capture attention, introduce a new content, creating awareness. Responding is further discussing, then group activities, the student responses during questioning, reflection exercises. And valuing is appreciating, endorsing, then preferring one preferences over another, like classroom norms and values, encouraging student engagement, encouraging ethical behavior in the classroom. Organizing is integrating, clarifying, formulating, ranking, relating. So lesson planning and then group project planning, creating rubrics of assessment, these all come under organizing. And characterizing or internalizing is to live by the standards, to be consistently in a particular system of behavior. So that is integration, deep internalization. So final projects or portfolios or self-reflection, ongoing personal development in the classroom. So these are the activities that reinforce the different levels of affective domain. Okay. I hope it's clear till now, whatever I said. Yes, Hina ma'am, you have written constructions of dam leads to displacement of people. Debate with example. Which level of, it's group discussion, right? So when we are talking about the group discussion, which level does it come? It's organizing the thought. So what I'll do tomorrow, you know, I'll get certain examples from the different field that you all belong to, and I'll ask you to categorize it into different levels of affective domain. Because cognitive, I'm quite sure it's very clear. Affective, I'll give some more examples from the field that you are engaged in. Is it okay? So that is why I want you to enlist the concepts at least that you are taking, so that, you know, I can prepare the activities accordingly. Any concept that you are teaching right now, so that, you know, I can revolve my lecture around it. Because the examples that I give may not be from your sphere of interaction. We have covered cognitive, we have covered affective. Entrepreneurship and innovation. Okay, sir. I hope whatever I said was clear today.
Yes, ma'am. It's clear.
It's clear?
Yeah.
Okay, I did my best. I don't know whether.
Yeah, it's clear. So it's like when it comes to, you know, we are just jumbling with, you know, I think so. That's the reason maybe we are not getting. Maybe tomorrow they will do little homeworks and we will come up with a little bit of, we will have
I'll also plan some online activities. Okay, so that it will be more engaging and
yeah.
okay.
But when it comes to the psychomotor, this is actually the students' engagement will come in this, no, ma'am, basically.
Cognitive could be explained well,
Mm.
and even psychomotor will be explained well because you can relate with it. But affective is something, which has blurry verbs also, I told you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, then shall we stop for the day? Shall we continue tomorrow?
Shagufta ma'am?
It's fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Fine.
Your session, no problem. Yeah, it was very well, done. Extremely clear. Don't worry, ma'am. It's fine. They are all understanding the concepts now. Maybe some of them are hearing for the first time, and most of them already
I
have
am
it. Yeah.
used to highly interactive classroom. So this is like,
Right, right.
I am just staring at the blank screens with no
Yes, sir.
camera on as well.
But yeah,
Yeah.
putting the cameras on.
Cameras, kindly
So
participants.
we'll request them tomorrow so that they do interact, so that even you are comfortable. Okay,
Yeah,
ma'am?
I'll also plan
And
it.
on our behalf, like here, we have people around, they are very happy with what you're doing. It's very clear. And the presentation is also explanatory and self-explanatory.
Okay. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay, then we'll continue tomorrow.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
We continue at the same time, 3 p.m. tomorrow. Please be seated at 3 and we'll go ahead with Bloom's taxonomy. And actually, we use all this a lot for our, we prepare our lesson plans accordingly. We also have our question paper set accordingly, our assignment set accordingly. We try our best. So we are just trying to, relate if we are doing it the right way. So we are very happy to go through your presentation now.
Okay,
And
so
I hope
tomorrow,
that-
what I'll do is I'll set the question paper and I'll show you how to use all the domains. And it
Yes,
will be
ma'am,
more
yes, ma'am.
application based instead of
Yeah.
only reading the text.
And one more thing we would like is how we will map it, like when we actually do the evaluations.
Okay.
That is also something which is a question mark. After doing all this, the COPO mapping becomes a little tough. Okay.
Yeah, COPO.
For the new, at least for the newcomers.
Yeah.
Start.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Feedback link is also shared here. So
Okay.
please try to fill the feedback for today. And thank you so much, ma'am, for such an informative session.
Thank you for
Tomorrow,
saying.
I hope so. All the participants kindly do little homeworks on what the questions we can ask related. At least if we go through a little bit of Bloom taxonomy, so we will able to, make the sessions more interactive and
Okay.
it's really useful for us if we interact and if we discuss the things with ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks so much.